I am here to tell you why the Carolina Panthers should not trade Brian Burns. I repeat, we should not trade him with a caveat. The caveat being the general manager that is on this team, which is Scott Fitterer. If he's the one calling the shots and making the decisions, do not trade Brian Burns. Let's talk about why. I'm not going to go back and rehash all of the draft picks that we've given up over the course of the year since Scott Fitterer's taken over. I think that does deserve its own session just to talk about everything that's happened since he's been here. But I'm primarily focused on some of the trades and the trades that, quite frankly, we have lost. Now, last year around this time, I was the one sitting here telling the world that we needed to trade Christian McCaffrey. It just felt like the time for a rebuild, and it felt like we would be able to get more draft capital. And draft capital is king, or at least you think it's king. But we've quickly learned that with Scott Fitterer making these decisions and picking who he is picking, that is not the way to go. It's clear that Christian McCaffrey is a far superior running back to anything that we have on this roster or ever will have. There's no replacing that. Here we are thinking that we found somebody in Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders just doesn't look the part. He alone, I think, is right at less than 200 yards rushing for the year, averaging around 3.8 yards per carry. Chuba Hubbard has about 26 less carries than him, and he's only about 40 to 50 yards away from surpassing him in the number of rushing yards. And that's with very limited carries, like I said. I can't talk about how many times that we keep getting decisions wrong. But you go back, wherever you want to start, Scott Fitterer is hired here in 2021, in January 2021. Big splash move, trades for Sam Darnold. We know the draft capital that he gave up there. We know how Sam Darnold panned out. Tried to make up for it by trading Teddy Bridgewater and getting a 6th-round pick. Since then, he was very active, like that first year, making all kinds of trades during the draft, which we won't get into, like I said, on here. There is one that I want to talk about, though, which is trading Denzel Perryman, who turned out to be one heck of a linebacker for the Las Vegas Raiders, for Cade Mays, who we've seen in bits and pieces, but is nowhere near the production quality that we would have gotten or could have gotten out of Denzel Perryman. You look at the C.J. Henderson trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got tight end Dan Arnold and a draft pick out of this. I'm not as mad about that one because CJ was a top-tier pick, and that did feel like, okay, if we get him and we develop him, we can really make this thing work out. All things considered, I don't think anybody won this trade because Jacksonville got Dan Arnold, who really hasn't panned out. And then the draft compensation ended up being Chad Muma, linebacker. You fast forward a little bit, staying active again, you have Stephon Gilmore trade with the New England Patriots for a 6th-round pick. Like, I'll take that. If we're getting some of these players for lesser draft picks where it's harder to hit in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, I'll take that all day. You do look at the trade for Matt Corral. Not going to really talk about that. Here's the kicker, and I think Panthers fans do not remember this because it happened so quickly. Panthers actually had Sam Howell. So we traded Sam Howell and Cole Turner to Washington for Brandon Smith and Amari Barno. But guess what? Quarterbacks weren't working out. Nothing happened in the draft. We had Matt Corral, but let's go out and get Baker Mayfield. We get Baker Mayfield drafted with the Cleveland Browns. And, that trade, too, wasn't terrible because it was a 2024, turns into a 2024 5th-round pick because he didn't play 70% of the snaps. So you take that. I'm not going to complain about that. Now, the one thing he did do is Dennis Daly, tackle that we traded to the Tennessee Titans, gave him a 7th-round pick, but we also got a 5th-round pick in exchange for the 2024 draft. And here we are. Good old Laviska Shenault. You trade Laviska Shenault, or require him, I should say, in August of last year for a 6th round and a 7th round pick. Well, I should say 6th round in 24, 7th in 2023. Ended up being Cooper Hodges for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, not great. You move out to Robbie Anderson. That one was a no-brainer as well. Like, Robbie just had to go, and we get a 6th and 7th rounder for him. The Christian McCaffrey trade. That's the trade that really, like, set this thing apart. We got a 5th round in 2024, which we'll see. Who knows what that'll turn into. 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round. And, reality part of this package is what was to get Bryce Young and then Jonathan Mingo and DJ Johnson. And that was it. That was it. And here we are trying to find, I guess this wasn't in the Bryce package, but anyways, trying to find a running back, a superstar running back. Oh, that's okay though, because here we are, March of 2023, trading Bryce Young for DJ Moore. Well, I should say the first overall pick for DJ Moore, giving them our 2024 first round pick, 2023 first round, 2023 second round, 2024 first, like I said, and 2025 second round. Like, God, dude. I don't know that we will ever win that trade at all. And then you've got March of this year trading Zane Gonzalez, another good one. Like, Zane needed to get off the roster. We get a 7th round pick, which is conditional, and unfortunately I don't think it's panned out there with his injury. In the draft, the one that hurt us this year was trading DJ Johnson. I wasn't really trading, but trading up for DJ Johnson with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know Pittsburgh got Darnell Washington and our 4th round pick. So 2 picks for DJ Johnson, who is yet to see the field. And then this year we trade for Amir Smith-Marset, really who's been involved in the punt return game, and that's about it, for a 2025 7th round pick, and we do get a 2025 7th round pick from Kansas City. But here we are. The question becomes, do you trust Scott Fitter with making these decisions? And I do not. I do not trust him one bit to come out here and trade Brian Burns to get a haul, whatever that haul is. If it is 2 first rounders, if it is a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I do not trust him to make the decision. When you have a player on your roster that is proven, which we've seen with Christian McCaffrey, with DJ Moore, now with Brian Burns, players that you developed, and we may not have, the staff that's here may not have fully developed him, but he's a developed Pro Bowl caliber player that you're giving up for someone that you just don't know. You have no idea how it's going to pan out. So I'm saying, as the Panthers, we just need to sit. We need to sit here unless Scott Fitter is not the one making the decisions with the draft capital, the draft picks in next year's draft. He is one of the worst general managers in the league, and I think that feeds in through and from top down with David Tepper. I mean, I guess we got meetings happening with Reich and Tepper, and Tepper's being very involved. He may not be the Jerry Jones model where he's the GM, but Tepper's pretty dang close to the organization and making sure he runs this thing into the ground. It is what it is. So if people out there posting, asking, do I think we should trade Brian Burns? No, I do not. I don't think it makes any sense right now. Our only hope and prayer is to wait until the draft. Once we get through the draft, I don't care if we do have the first overall pick that we don't actually have. I don't care, because once April hits and the draft is over, everyone will talk about Caleb Williams, Drake May, all the other talent that's there. The storyline will move on from the Carolina Panthers that squandered this whole thing, and life will be much better, at least for a few days for us. And we'll be back in the same position as a small market team that nobody talks about, which is okay, from sitting here in this embarrassing spot at 0-5 with the number 1 overall pick. Now, things can shift and things can change. All you do, you win 1 or 2 games, and hey, if we end up having the 8th, 7th, 6th pick, it just feels a little bit better than having the first overall pick and being the worst team in the league. I think that the issue, though, there is you got to win games and Frank Wright, who says this is easy to win games. Go listen to the presser. I don't think so, bud. You can't even win a game. You can't. Anyways, that's all I got for today, folks. Keep pounding.